Hold on, let me clear. Hello, Dr. Brett Spradlin here at Divine Design Natural Health, and we are right at the very beginning of an event called...
Yes, we are.
We are, right? Well, hold on. Is there anybody here?
Yeah.
I'm glad this is being recorded for posterity, so we caught all that. Because we answer a lot of questions about this topic, and the title of this is The Root of All Evil. You can kind of assume from the scriptural reference what this is about. It'll become more and more clear to you as time goes by. But just in the last few weeks, there have been, I'll go back, I'll say a few months, there have been a lot of interesting advances, such as this whole chat GPT thing, the rise of artificial intelligence. I've taught classes on that stuff back a couple of years ago called Natural versus Artificial, where we went into genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, all the stuff that is being rolled out by your medical field, and currently in the nanoparticle bioweapon lethal injection that has been inserted into 2/3 of the world's population. I won't get into too much of that tonight, but the whole chat GPT thing and all the artificial intelligence that's rolling out ties directly into some of this. Also, the train derailments that have been happening, dozens of them. Obviously, they're not planned. All the trans stuff, all the drag queen stuff, this ties into it. The FTX collapse, I believe that was the first week of November. We'll get into some of that, how that ties into this. The COVID's hoax, which is widely being debunked now. Today, strange, 3-year anniversary today, March 13th. 3-year anniversary. So it's very fitting that the banks are crashing and the economy is tanking on the 3rd-year anniversary. Of course, coincidence, nothing's planned like that, right? And then the January 6th the insurrection that they call it, insurrection that they call it, has all been proven to be fake as well. And the spy balloons and the banking collapses and all the stuff, the bailouts versus the bail-ins, we'll talk about all that. But what does that all have to do with what we're going to talk about tonight? Take notes. That's all I'm going to say. The root of all evil. Here we go. And before we get right into this, don't forget, 2 weeks, I'll be doing the Say What You Meme What You Say, March 27th, part 3. Part 3. It's going to be great. How many of you like memes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the FBI loves me and my meme collection. It's fabulous. But just a couple things that I'll say before we get into this. This is not financial advice, nor is this, we need to put out all the legal disclaimers and all this. Hey, you got to do what you want to do and what feels right for you. For me, US dollars are no longer an option. So it's just disclosure for me. Yes, I'm into metals. Yes, I'm into Bitcoin, crypto, things we're going to certainly some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. But I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just bringing this so that you have kind of an idea. I want to inspire you to investigate things further on your own. We are not going to discuss all of this in massive detail at all. I'm going to give you the bird's eye view, going to give you the forest, not the trees. If you want to further, down the road, engage and and say, hey, Dr. Brett, how do I do this? How do I move from the bank to this? Or how do I get it from here to there? All my money or whatever. Or, hey, what do you do with this? Or what do you do with that? What do you do with metals? What do you do with silver? Where do you get it? Where do you buy it? How do you do it? If you got any of those questions, we'll answer that either after the cameras stop rolling or at further subsequent times down the road. There might be a part 2 of this one. You never know. But this will not answer all of your questions. There's no way. But I can assure you this, in the next probably 90 minutes, we are going to run through things that will answer a ton of questions that you already had or that you didn't even know you had. I'll prove it to you. But farther down the road, if you have questions, you let us know, because we know how to do this. We've been doing it a long time. We don't make any money off of it. We just get enjoyment out of you guys waking up and figuring out how to break out of the system. No one gets paid to sell somebody. Well, I can't say no one. I'm saying we don't. We don't get paid to sell you on an idea like Bitcoin or crypto or getting your money out of the bank. We just hate to see people's lives be destroyed. So that's all the not financial advice stuff that we need to go through. Let's tear into this, starting now, okay? Well, here's the big announcement I have for you. We're partnering with Pfizer, and we're going to do mRNA plus plans So if you guys want the basic, you can get 2 free injections every 12 months. That's $55 a month. If you want the standard, we do 4 free injections every 12 months, and that's $75. And then the ultimate, if you really want to do 6 free injections every 12 months, that's $95 a month. And of course, you get 24/7 support virtually here, and it's limited for the basic. But if you want to go all out, I would say go for the 6 free injections every 12 months. What do you guys think? I'm just kidding. That's not what this is about. Let's go. If you couldn't tell. Here's the overview. Ready? The most basic of basic questions, what is money? You will be very surprised by this. You'll be very surprised. What is money? Next, keep going. What is inflation? It's not what you're hearing on the news. How is money currently understood and why? Why is there so much bad information about money? People think money. What is money? They pull out a dollar bill. That's not money. That's a Federal Reserve note, which was something we can't even get into in this class. It's a Federal Reserve note. It represents error, something that used to be based on something. But why is there so much crap going on in the media? Why is there so much crap going on today? Banks falling, banks tanking. Silvergate Bank a while back, a couple days ago, Friday, I believe it was, Silicon Valley Bank. So it's perfect timing for this class, right? But the money is currently misunderstood. That's why all of this is happening. When did money become corrupted? Was there a certain time? If what we're being told today is wrong, just like with your healthcare and your religion and your media and your politics and all, if what we're being told today is wrong, when did it all go wrong? How did we mess it up so bad? More importantly, what does the Bible say about money? That's another topic in and of itself. We could preach for weeks just on that. Scriptures that come to mind. Misconceptions about money, just some common ones. Where should you keep your money right now? That's where everybody's thinking, right? That's what everybody's talking about. Where should you be, and why should you be proactively concerned about this? We've been telling people over 3 years now, take your money out of the banks, get your money out of the banks, get your money out of the banks. Why? Well, we'll get into it. And then on kind of, I won't even say a lot of people know about this. I talk to people, I bring this up in conversation. It's weird because I'll say, hey, what about these central bank digital currencies they're talking about, CBDCs? And sometimes people go, oh yeah, I don't want any part of that. And then other times people look at me like they've never heard of it. It's been around for a long time. We'll talk about that. We'll explain it. And then FAQs, frequently asked questions about the Apex solution, the way out of all this mess. Does any of that interest any of you?
Yes.
Fabulous. All right, so let's tear into this. Why is a natural health practice, we got to answer this question first. Why is a natural health practice talking about money? Well, I'll tell you this. There's only one question you can ask me in any of the treatment rooms that I won't answer, and it has to do with money. If you start asking me, hey, I can't afford this, or hey, can we do this, or can we do that, or oh, that's an expensive supplement, can I say, that's not my gig. I don't talk to you about money. Go down the hall, talk to front desk, talk to a patient advocate, talk to Heidi, talk to Sam, talk to Nadia, talk to somebody else about money. My thing is not money. My thing is getting you better clinically. So that's the only question I'm not going to answer in a treatment room. So I'll answer it here. Why? Because of this. These are the questions you get, or I should say the objections. Well, natural health is expensive to some people, but to everyone, a diagnosis of cancer or a replaced hip or 12 weeks in rehab is much more expensive than changing your diet. I get this one, but Medicare pays for my health care. Well, or I call it murder care. You get that one frequently from the older folks. And they say, well, murder care pays for my health care. Well, it's not really health care, and they're not really paying for it. Who paid for it? You did. You were tricked into thinking that they paid for it. And to take that one step further, look into Canada and look at what's going on with socialized healthcare with medical assistance in dying. That's socialized, that's coming for America. That's the socialized healthcare that's coming for America. So, see Canada for that one. Next one is, I didn't pay for my knee replacements. I've had people look me in the eyes and argue with me for minutes about, I didn't pay for my knee replacements. Well, who did?
You did, really.
Yeah, you did pay for them decades ago. You still have pain, so who's still paying for them even today? You are. So, why are people not seeing this? That's why I don't answer these questions. And then the last one, of course, the most common one right here. My insurance is free. So the doctors, the hospitals, the nurses, the rehab people all showed up for your surgery, all those times that you had this organ removed and that lifted and that tucked and all this stuff. All those people showed up for free, right? Improbable, impossible, statistically not going to happen, right? So your insurance is not free. You have premiums that you have to pay in order to have the product. Then once you have the product, what do you have to pay before they pay anything? A deductible, copay, co-insurance, prescription costs, and you've got the trips to Vanderbilt and the trips to MD Anderson and the trips to Johns Hopkins to meet with the one dude in the whole world that understands your specific autoimmune disease, 1 out of 500 autoimmune diseases, and there's only 2 people in the world that understand it. That's all fake too, by the way, FYI. So that's why I don't answer money questions. But here's the deal. You always have time. You always have money. You always have energy, always, to do what's important to you. If it's video games, if it's your house, adding on to it, if it's going on vacation, that's what's important. If it's your health, that's what's important. Show me your calendar, your contact list, your credit card, your bank statements. I'll tell you what is the most important thing in your life. If it's adding on to your house, if it's partying on a Friday night, I'll tell you. It's easy to see. You spend your time, your money, and your energy on things you find most important. That's a fact. Okay? So why are we talking about money here? Because it's very difficult for you to be healthy if you're broke, and it's very difficult for you to be broke if you're not healthy. Or did I say that right? You get what I mean. Spend on your health in small increments now rather than trying to recover from an expensive catastrophe during an irreversible collapse. We would call this an oil change, and we would call this part a complete overhaul or a new engine, right? You have access to rebuilding your body for pennies on the dollar when you come here. It's simple. It's too simple for most people. Every dollar you spend here is 40 to 80, the new numbers, $40 to $80 that you spend in a natural health place is not going into big pharma. So guess what? They don't get a piece of you. Neat, right? A friend of mine told me this. Doug, clap for you. This was good. A friend of mine, Doug, told me this. I know he's watching right now, or he will later, so he'll get a kick out of this. This was not my observation. This was his. Politicians no longer talk about Social Security. Why is that? Has anybody noticed this? Well, because it's going away. Because they've already got the problem handled, right? They decrease your lifespan with the foods we eat and the poisons. Well, look at that. Well, look at that. I forgot to tell you Doug's an FBI informant. I forgot to tell you that part. They've already got the problem handled by decreasing your lifespan with the foods we eat and the poisons distributed by your current healthcare system. It's no longer a Social Security problem because you'll be dead, particularly with the events of the last 3 years, right? Next. Why are we talking about this? Schools don't teach it. You do not learn financial literacy. They've confused us, and most of us don't even know that we're confused, right? Next. Why? Why are we teaching this? Because there's nothing more ethical than educating people to understand both health and wealth. We like to do ethical stuff here, right? We're never going to tell you a lie, and we're never going to do something that would be bad for you. So here it is. Without health, you can't generate wealth, and you can't control your wealth. It's difficult to be healthy on the inverse, the converse of that. It's difficult to be healthy if you're unable to control your monetary energy, right? Wealth is meaningless if you're not healthy. So if you've got all the vacations and yachts and, quadruple homes all across the nation that you can't go to because you're in a hospital bed, what good does it do you? That's why we're doing this. Another couple of reasons, we're not just looking out for you, we're looking out for your future generations. That's why our tagline is saving lives ahead of time. Because we know that if we get ahead of the surgeons and the scalpels and the drugs, we can keep you from an early death and keep them from stealing your inheritance from your grandchildren. You get me? This is a big deal. This is not just a business, it's a ministry.
Yes.
It's a business tree. It's a business tree, yes. So this broad overview will serve to introduce you to many new concepts regarding the current state of world economics, but understand that this is not comprehensive. It's not exhaustive. This is just to dip your toes into it, okay? Why? A couple people. Catherine Austin Fitz from the Solari Report said, what we ultimately need, I love how she said this, is a complete re-engineering of our economy into one that is built on health rather than disease.
Amen.
Your whole system, that whole insurance thing that I just mentioned is built on this. But if you understand this, you don't need their system. See how health ties into wealth? Now, if you understand what I'm about to tell you later on, you don't need banks. You don't need US dollar Federal Reserve notes, FRNs floating around in your pocket. You can live outside the system. You can do peace rather than war, and transparency rather than secrecy. And the people must be in control of that economy. How can the people be in control of an economy? I'll show you. Economy built on disease, war, and secrecy, controlled by a hidden cabal, is what leads us into a downward spiral in the first place. And if you don't know that that's happening from the last 3 years, or actually 150 years, you probably ought to look into it. Robert Kiyosaki said, Bitcoin is capitalism. The dollar is communism. That's a pretty harsh statement right there. There's a lot of harsh statements coming up. I'll just get you broken in for that. The one thing history teaches us is that we don't learn from history. Probably the first book that broke me out of the illiteracy of the financial illiteracy that I was in was one of his books. Actually, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It came out in, I don't know when it came out, but I read it probably in 96, 97, something like that. Changed my life. So, why else? Just the 2-minute video. Go ahead and play it. This is why you need to know all this.
For the EFT, Mr. Bloom has 2 minutes.
Commissioner, Mr. President, I rise again, I'm afraid, to make the same old hoary speech that I've been making here for several years, and that is, it is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
Grazie per il gruppo.
I just got done watching Shakespeare. My blood's just pumping. So this dude, that was about 10 years ago. So he probably died about 9 years ago. But he was talking about, nobody laughed at my joke, but he was talking about central bankers. And what is the name of the CBDC again?
Central bank digital currency.
Correct. So this is a big deal. And you might want to know, what is money? So let's go to this next thing. This is straight out of Merriam-Webster dictionary. Medium that can be exchanged for goods and services and is used as a measure of their values on the market, including among its forms a commodity, such as gold. What does commodity mean? It means nobody issues it. It's like oil. It's like timber. It's a commodity. There's no central supplier of it, right? Such as gold. And it has value, yes. And officially issued coin or note, or a deposit in a checking account or other readily liquefiable account. Now that was added later on because checking accounts have only been around for 100 years maybe. Number 2, the official currency coins and negotiable paper notes issued by a government. It's a brand new thing too, right? This is not Daniel Webster, this is Merriam-Webster, if you get what I'm saying. Assets and property considered in terms of monetary value. So wealth. You can flippantly say money, like that's my money, or you can flippantly say, hey, give me some money, like give me some Federal Reserve note, paper trash, cash, that's that. Or it's a medium of exchange that can be used for goods and services. So But the 5 properties of money, this is massive. See, this is huge because money across time, whether it was glass beads on certain islands or whether it was wampum between certain Native American tribes or whether it was timber and lots of different kinds of money over time, had to have 5 things. Had to be divisible. Could you buy something small, something large? It had to be durable. Has to last through anything. Does typical paper money last through anything? No. So right there, we've got a problem, right? This is very logical. It has to be recognizable. You have to be able to authenticate it or verify it. We've got some pretty good, counterfeiting measures in the current stuff. But are you able to authenticate it or verify it? Not until most recently. Portable. It has to be able to move from place to place. Well, it's very difficult. It's easy to move paper, but when you're moving giant stones or you're moving shiny rocks like silver and gold, that's very difficult. You got a couple $1,000s of that stuff and you're going to be huffing it a long way. It's going to get very heavy. Or you need armored cars or planes or boats. That's the only way you're moving that stuff. So, and it might not be durable, right? Silver, gold, durable, burn up in a fire, you're hosed. But the big thing right here is the scarcity. There has to be more demand than supply. If like this gentleman said, if they just keep printing money out of thin air, what happens to the money in your savings account? It goes down because the demand, the supply goes way, way up, right? So the dollars go way, way down. The value of the dollar goes way, way down. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. But the biggest thing is there is one invention that has finally led us to the scarcity of money with a fixed supply that does not change. We'll get to it. But it has also perfected the other 4 properties. Go back to that previous slide there real quick, Jonathan. Thank you. It can be divisible in any amount. It's durable. It can last through anything. It's actually encapsulated energy and light. It's encapsulated electricity. It can be recognizable, very easy to authenticate, verify. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of computers all around the world talking to each other and making sure that this right here and this right here are equal. It's auditable on a regular basis, millions of times per day. And it's portable. You can move it from place to place. You can literally move billions of dollars from here to anywhere else in the world at the speed of light for fractions of a penny. Interested? Like this is some fascinating stuff. You're talking next level printing press. Now you're talking 500 years later. Now we've got the thing that makes the printing press obsolete as far as the money printer goes. And then the scarcity, more demand than supply. This is the only thing known in the world to only have a certain set supply, and that is what makes it, that's what breaks it wide open away from every other kind of money. We'll get more into this as time goes by. I just want to wet your whistle. Next slide. So money is an insurance policy against, here's my definition. It's an insurance policy against uncertainty. I am not into these in any way, shape, or form. I don't like them. Shouldn't have to buy anything, but that's another story. But it's an insurance policy against uncertainty. It maximizes your options. So money can't buy you happiness, right? But it sure can give you options. Money's monetary energy. It's a stored power to do things. God knew that we would need a way to store our energy for future use. That's what money is. Money is the root of all sovereignty. Well, the love of money, not money itself. People misquote this scripture all the time. Money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. The love of money is the root of all evil. That's where all the malice, that's where all the porn, that's where all of the murder, that's where, not all the murder, but that's where all the gambling and the stealing and the theft and so much domestic violence comes from the love of money. But money itself, the root of all evil is the love of money, right? But money itself is the root of all sovereignty. The love of money is the root of all evil. Money is a property right. In other words, it should be able to be shared. People should be able to store their money. They should be able to store their monetary energy that they've worked for. It's just a right. It's a property right. Now, there are a lot of people in the world that can't even have a bank. They don't even have access to a bank. This solves that problem. So in Summary, money is economic energy. The problem is inflation. So now you have to ask yourself, what is inflation? Here's one way to think about it. Inflation is a tax on your savings. It's theft without anyone touching your wallet. So here's the sequence. Eventually, initially the currency is pegged to an asset, okay? Like gold or silver or whatever. Then the paper is issued because people say, well, we don't want to carry these stones and shells and glass beads around. They make too much noise. We can't walk quietly at night. Go back. We can't walk around quietly at night, or it's too heavy or whatever. So then the government issues paper, right? Then the paper supply gets tripled. This is where we're at right now. And we're just getting ready to get into this sentence where the currency collapses. What does that entail? Bail-ins and bailouts. Bail-ins are where the government bails out. Bailouts are where a government bails out the bank and just prints a bunch of money and says, here you go. You saw that happen in 2008 with like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns and all that. Bail-ins, what's the difference? They just take your money. That's what we're getting ready to do right here. That's what's coming. The road to serfdom is working exponentially harder for a currency that's constantly growing exponentially weaker. We'll talk more about that. I'll lay out some stats that'll blow your mind later on. Inflation is legalized counterfeiting, like the English gentleman said. And counterfeiting is criminalized inflation. Let that sink in. What you hear on the news is the consumer price index. It's not the goods in the consumer price index because the government picks the items in the basket where they get that index. So all they do is they make sure that those goods in that basket don't go up. So they can change the goods in the basket and they can call it CPI and they can say the inflation, the consumer price index isn't changing or it only went up 2 points. But they may not be putting eggs in there. They may not be putting gas. So they can manipulate the number and lie with statistics. That's what they've been doing for a long time. Because remember when inflation was transitory and then there was no inflation and then, oh, there is inflation, but it's only there is inflation and it's only 4%. And well, they keep moving the goalposts like they did with the COVID hoax. Keep going. Since you've traded your time for money, because time is money, right? When the government prints your money, they steal your time. These are deep things that people need to think about, but they're not comfortable. So I'll just warn you, there's some things coming up that might make you very uncomfortable, but it's in an effort to inspire you to investigate some of these things on your own. So the bailouts and bail-ins thing, bailouts and bail-ins, government bails out the banks. Bail-ins, banks take your money. Either way, you get hosed. So now, commercial break real quick. Everybody welcome Heidi up. Heidi's got some testimonials for you.
All right, so this patient's been here about 2 years, and she said, I went to my first eye exam after being a patient at Divine Design, and my eye doctor was surprised that my stigmatism went away and that I am over 50 and don't need bifocals.
Haha. I love that. I used to have astigmatism, and I didn't get LASIK, and I don't wear contacts. And I'm not an eye doctor, so how did that work? Your eyes heal over time. I won't get into it now. We could teach a whole class on eyes. Let's get into some memes. Warren Buffett famously said, Bitcoin is rat poison. And now you probably can't see it from the back, but some ingenious fellow put the logos of Citibank, HSBC, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs on the rats. So yes, Bitcoin is rat poison. Yes. Oh, and Warren Buffett also famously said this. He said, I'll take my Coca-Cola dividends and I'll give China, India, and rural America cancer and diabetes. So people who look up to Warren Buffett, be careful. Your basic ways that government steals your money. If you earn it, income tax. You live somewhere, property tax. You spend it, sales tax. If you save it, inflation tax. If you invest it, capital gains. If you start a business, licenses. If you got a good business, profit. If you give it away, gift. If you die, inheritance. Isn't that great? Land of the free, right? Home of the brave. Next. If you believe you're free, name 5 things you can do that isn't taxed, regulated, or illegal. Fishing, is it taxed, regulated, or illegal? Hunting, is it taxed, regulated, or illegal? Getting married, having babies, going to the hospital, driving a car. Land of the free, home of the brave, right? And what happened to the vampire one? Is there a vampire one in there with the Bitcoin thing? Did I miss that? No? Okay, it's probably coming up later. We'll talk more about this later on. I'll read it for the nosebleed section. Why should we pay cash everywhere with banknotes instead of a card? Now, no, do not do the cash thing. I'll explain this later. I just want to read this right here. He's saying basically here, if you got 50 bucks in your pocket and you go to a restaurant and you pay for dinner with it, the restaurant owner uses the bill to pay for the laundry, and the laundry pays the barber, and the barber uses it for shopping, and then an unlimited number of payments, that $50 is still $50. So this person's saying let's use cash all the time. In comparison to what happens when you use a digital card. We'll discuss this more later. I want to introduce this to you now so you can start thinking about it. At the end, we'll talk about it too. But if you use a card, I'll read it word for word. If I come to a restaurant and pay for digitally, card, bank fees for my payment, transaction charge to the sellers are 3%. So around $1.50 on that $50 transaction. So will the fee, $1.50 for each, and so will the fee, this guy can't write, sorry, for each further payment transaction or owner regarding laundry or payments of the owner of the laundry shop, payments of the barber, etc. Therefore, here's the deal. After 30 transactions, after you swipe that card, 1.5% comes out. The next guy swipes the card, 1.5% comes out. The next guy swipes the card, 1.5% comes out. That initial $50 will remain only $5 of purchasing power. And the remaining $45 became the property of the bank, thanks to all the digital transactions and fees. So are people still clamoring for a central bank digital currency that could be shut off or canceled based on your voting or what food you bought or what flight you took? Next. We'll see that again. Oh, here it is, right here. It's just in a different order. Sunlight to a vampire is kryptonite to Superman is Bitcoin to a banker. Now you'll understand why when you watch something on the internet or on the news or on all this nonsense, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all this nonsense, why they're constantly panning Bitcoin, this one thing, Bitcoin. There's only one thing they all hate. They can't control it. It threatens their structure. It gets rid of bookkeepers, CPAs. It gets rid of lawyers and judges. It gets rid of financial planners. It gets rid of banks. They don't want it. They hate it. But all the other crypto, yeah, it's fine. This right here, that Bitcoin thing right there, is the one thing that they hate. They cannot control it. It's outside of their grasp, and they know it. Next. How is money currently understood? I'll blow through this because there are two vocal schools of thought. If you ever get deep down the rabbit hole on this, you'll understand the Keynesians and the Austrians. Real quick, one slide. Here goes. The Keynesians... Jonathan, there you are. Keynesian economists are in favor of government intervention in the economy and money supply inflation. They support measures like the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing. What is quantitative easing? It's where they just print money, right? Remember Barack drone bomber that printed all the money, right? Quantitative easing, QE they call it. That's legal counterfeiting, basically, in order to keep things afloat like welfare and warfare. Think of those guys as commies. Think of them as commies. That's what they are. Austrian economists favor a free market with minimal to no government intervention. They generally believe that inflation is bad and deflation is good. Most people have never even seen this word before. Deflation, where over time, goods and services get cheaper, as they should.
As they should.
As they should. Your shoes, your cars. We've found out ways to make things easier and cheaper over the time. So why are things more expensive? Things should get cheaper over time. Austrians champion competing currencies as opposed to fiat currency, which is just paper money by decree and consent. Think of these guys as communists, because they are, and think of these guys as anarchists or capitalists or anarcho-capitalists. So which one of these do you think is taught in colleges? So why does nobody know about the Austrians? Because it's not taught. Makes more sense, right? We'll get into that later. When did money become corrupted? Let's tear through this. Our currency once was backed by gold and silver, but it got heavy and people couldn't carry it. And, people would rob trains and steal the gold, right? So your media, politics, education, healthcare, religious systems, they've all been corrupted to some degree. So do you think that money has not been corrupted? And the banking, the bankers, all these guys? Bretton Woods Agreement, we won't get into that now, but basically that was the U.S. determining like the U.S. dollar was the reserve currency. Then what happened? What were the other things? 1913, the Federal Reserve was created, and it's not federal and there are no reserves. It's not part of the government. You've just been taught that your whole life. We've all been taught that our whole lives. For more on this, G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a book about how this whole thing came about on an island called Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia back in 1913. And actually, the place where they met, this house, was on a Native American burial ground where there were sacrifices. It's crazy. The house, the Rockefeller house where they met on Jekyll Island. And now it's a tourist place and people go there and there's a sign and it says, oh, this is where the Federal Reserve was founded. And everybody's happy and they take pictures, but they have no idea what that really meant. It's the enslavement of humanity right here. I've got some patients that used to go to Jekyll Island. They tell me, I'm going to Jekyll Island, like the Jekyll Island? And they say, yeah. I say, well, go and find me some books and bring me some stuff. They brought me the coolest stuff. Anyway, that's in Georgia, right down the street. 34, Roosevelt confiscated the private gold of Americans. That's always fun, right? So if they did it before, can they do it again? Absolutely. 71, Nixon abandoned the gold standard. Wonder why he did that. And then here comes fractional reserve banking, or what's termed rehypothecation. Fractional reserve banking means, I go to the bank, I give them $100, they turn around and they loan that $100 out to, 10 or 20 or 30 other people charging interest, but they don't really have that $100 anymore. It's an illusion, it's fake. That's what the English gentleman was saying at the very beginning. It's usury, the biblical term, but fractional reserve banking just means, hey, there's a fraction of the reserves that the bank should have. Fractional reserve banking means they have a fraction of it, maybe. So if there's a bank run on a bank, are they going to have all your money? Absolutely not. So it's also termed rehypothecation. Rehypothecation is a little different, but I did want to put it in there. Then, of course, today, now, everybody's learning BlackRock and Vanguard own absolutely everything. So, next. Now, this one right here is a little bit of I'll prepare you for this. What does the Bible say about money? Do not get hung up on this. Don't get hung up on this. I'm not saying crosses are bad. I'm not saying, don't do a crucifix or whatever. I'm not saying that Jesus on the cross is a looking at that and saying, remembering the sacrifice. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is this. This is an interesting thought, an interesting experiment. Jesus on the cross in every church, and we know as spirit-filled, heavy-duty, like New Testament Christians, he's not on the cross anymore. That's another thing I need to say. Don't let this get your panties in a twist. But this is an interesting thought. Jesus on the cross in every church is the central banker saying to every person in the world, this is what happens to you when you mess with our money. It's a subliminal message to the peasant class. It's very interesting. I went all throughout Europe when I graduated from college, and everywhere I went, it was just this massive church in a destitute little town. And it was gold and marble and vaulted ceilings and flying buttresses across with paintings everywhere and stained glass windows. And at the very end of this massive hall of church was a big giant Jesus on a cross, an emaciated little white dude with a hole in his side with a crown of thorns hanging there still on the cross. And it just never looked right to me. I thought, why would you put that in here? Like, if somebody ran over your dog, and split, not to compare Jesus to a dog, but if somebody killed someone that you loved or ran over your dog and it was split in two pieces on the road, why would you display it? Thinking about it further down the road as I got, closer to God and everything, I kind of thought, okay, that's a reminder of what he did. But really, when you look at it, how that was portrayed throughout all of history, that makes a lot of sense. So you take that thought experiment another little bit further and you go, well, one thing that put him on the cross was money. Why? Because he challenged the power of the ruling elite, and power is always equated to money. Always, right? Everything they did revolved around money. How do I know? I just sat down for like 5 minutes and I thought, I wonder how many things I can think of in the Bible that have to do with money. Besides early on, the first mention of gold and silver in the Bible was Abraham, who was at the very beginning, at the very early into Genesis. Abraham had gold, Abraham had silver, Abraham had flocks, and Abraham had herds. And he had, and he had land. So he was a very, very well-off individual. So that was the very first mention of gold and silver in the Bible. But then I just sat down one time and thought, okay, how many things can I just come up with just in 5 minutes? How important is money to God and being a good servant and a good steward of it? Here you go. We don't have all the scriptures. We don't have time. This is a whole separate class. I wish you had heard sermons on this, but here's one for you. The love of money, we already talked about that one, is the root of all evil, not money. You can't serve God and money or mammon, right? The woman who'd spent all her what? On doctors? Money, right? In Luke. Rich man and Lazarus. What did the rich man have? A lot of money. Camel through the eye of a needle. Another example. I'm sure you're getting the point. Next. Judas sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. That money bought a field. Next. Let's rock through these. Destroy his temple. Jesus said, which took money to build, right? Money and time. Time is money. Rich young ruler had much wealth, right? He was very, very upset when Jesus said, sell your stuff and follow me. Jesus paid a drachma tax. He sent Peter to go find a fish that had a coin in his mouth. Mary's ointment could have been sold for what? Who said that? A year's wages. Judas said that, right? And then later on, Judas did this, right? He overturned the tables of the moneylenders in the temple. See, Ananias and Sapphira, what they lie about? Right? Parable of the sower, those who have and those who have not, servants who buried or invested the ruler's money, wedding feast was about money, John chapter 2, and whether the bride's family could afford enough wine, right? Remember that one? That was a money thing. Sermon on the Mount, don't worry about the food or the drink or the clothing. God knows what you need before you ask. So just within a few minutes, you sit down and you go, wow, there's a lot of scriptures where God knew that we were going to have a way to store our purchasing, energy, right? Next. It's crazy. So here's the point you get out of that. All monetary resources and the ability to earn them, keep them, and multiply them come from God. What does the government currently want to do? Shut down all of this. That should tell you something. Now, here's a note, too, I noticed from talking to a few people. People have somehow been taught that being taxed into oblivion is actually giving back to society. Have you ever been having a talk with somebody at work or church or something, and they go, well, I'm just giving back to society with my taxes. You have to pay taxes. It's giving back. I think it was a popularized notion a long time ago to get people okay with being extorted frivolously. Because what you notice is this might be a reason why many people don't tithe. They're already giving 30 to 40% of their income to a corrupt government, so they think they're generously giving above and beyond what God already commanded, right? This idea occurred to me a while back, and I thought, I wonder if that's why so many pastors hate passing the plate. They hate having this talk because people are already extorted into oblivion. God only asked for 10%, but he has the right to require 100, right? So, public service announcement, don't forget to tithe before you finance your own enslavement by paying your taxes. Don't forget that. Next. So misconceptions. People say, I can't afford it. You can do whatever you want. If you keep saying that, you won't be able to afford anything. I can't afford it. The question you should be asking yourself is, how can I afford? If there's something you want, how can I do this, right? Well, there's only two ways to do it. Whether, I don't care, Dave Ramsey, whether you do some financial coaching, planning, yada, yada, there's only two. No, this is the simplicity of economics. All of it right here. You either make more money or you spend less. That's how simple it is. Now, this is, and I recommend people go out, get another job. Mow some lawns, do something, do a side hustle, right? Whatever they want to afford. But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that people afford, the Harleys, the boats, the big fat trucks, second houses, stuff like that, is not necessary, right? Penny saved is still a penny. Money doesn't grow on trees. Actually, they print it from cotton, so it actually does grow on trees. And then money can't buy you happiness. No, you're right. But you can have options, and you can have security. So there are a lot of misconceptions. We could go on and on about this. Next. So, yeah. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Back up. Come on up. Quick little break here. I need a drink.
All right, so this patient's been here about 9 months, and she said, for over 10 years, I have had seasonal allergies. I went through allergy testing and had a sinus infection every fall and spring. This year, I have not taken any allergy medicine and don't even have the sniffles. What a difference.
If you want more on that, the class, You Do Not Have Allergies, which is a cousin class to You Don't Have a Chemical Imbalance, which is also a cousin class to You Don't Have an Autoimmune Disease. Go check those out. Okay, how the government taxes you. They cut a little sliver And then they take the whole stinking thing. Look at that. Gold and silver is God's money. We just talked about this. Think about it. You have Illuminati symbolism on your dollar bills and you don't even question it. Roses are red, violets are blue, taxation is theft, inflation is too. We live in a society where homosexuals lecture us on morals, transsexuals lecture us on human biology, baby killers lecture us on human rights, communists lecture us on economics, and Satanists lecture us on religion. How nice. Isn't that great? If you can just print money, why am I paying taxes? That's a Norman Rockwell painting you may not have seen, right? Next. America, land of the free. Some terms and conditions may apply. Here we have police state, endless war, corruption, endless debt, central banks, surveillance, false flags, and technocracy. Wow, how far we've gone, right? So how do you get out of this? We'll get there. Here it is. Where should you keep your money right now? You've got a lot of options, right? You do cash, but it's eventually going to zero. What you ought to do is buy scarce assets. Your cash in the bank is vaporizing daily. I tell people, cash asset. We've done classes on survival and prepping. We've done classes on what you need to have in your medicine cabinet, or I should say your natural health supplement cabinet instead of medicine cabinet. We've done a lot of classes on that. Plant power for the next plague. We've done Survivor, FEMA Summer Camp Edition, for people to understand like how to break out of this system, so that you don't just have, macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles in your bug out bag, right? So we've been planning and prepping for this for a long time. But I tell people, buy scarce assets. But first, like before you go doing Bitcoin or silver or gold or whatever, make sure you've got food, make sure you've got water and water filters, make sure you've got guns and ammo, the really precious metals like lead and copper, But make sure you have other things taken care of before you worry about money, right? But your cash in the bank is going away. Banks. Here's how I define a bank. An investment swindle in which some early investors are paid off with money put up by later ones in order to encourage more and bigger risks. They're illegitimate Ponzi schemes. They cannot give you back your money. If everyone shows up at the same time, that's called a bank run, and you'll be broke. Your money will be gone. What are your other options? Here it is. Stocks and bonds could do that, but they can be split. They can be reissued. They can be devalued. You can do mutual funds. It's a bunch of stocks. But how do you know the mutual fund that you bought isn't supporting one of the stocks that you're in on your mutual fund isn't coming up with a new mRNA vaccine for little kids? Or how do you know? Do you have your money in Coca-Cola or Pepsi when they're aborting babies to make their stuff? Never felt good about it. So stocks and bonds, you could, but they can just reissue more of it, devalue it, split it on a stock split. Real estate, not a bad idea, but as you've seen in the last few years, it can be taxed, it can be seized, it can be impaired by legislation. What do I mean by that? They pass a law that says the renters don't have to pay you, right? Or other parties. It can be impaired. So like we have a little agreement here that there will not be tattoo parlors, nail salons, or anything else in the upstairs of this building. Why would I want that? I'd want to write that into the contract so that my stuff is not impaired by somebody else moving in next door who can mess up the value of your property or mess up your mojo, right? So I'm sure many of you have been in a situation where you've lived in a place or had a neighbor that just creeped you out, or the house down the road kind of drew down the value of your house, right? So what would happen if they put a garbage dump, or as is happening, or something big, a big plant or something, as has happened in previous places that I've lived, they put a big garbage dump or a big foundry or a big quarry right down the street, and it's going to be really dusty for about the next 30, 40 years. What's that going to do to the value of your property? And you have no control over that. But then you've still got the property taxes, the maintenance costs, the headache, the taxes, all that crap. Not a bad idea. You could do real estate. Precious metals, I'm into it. I'm huge into it. It's great. I love silver. I'm not a gold guy. I'm not a gold bug, but I don't do a lot of it, right? Why? Because it's really, 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 really stinking heavy, and you can't move it. And it's very difficult to do anything with, right? But I do have a little bit of it. So it can be confiscated, though. Nixon did it, or not Nixon. Who was the guy? One of the presidents did it a long time ago, stolen, or it could be destroyed. IRAs and 401ks, they're controlled by other people, and they're taxed excessively. And if you want to touch it ahead of time, you're screwed, and you can't get to it. You can't get to it. You got to go through some other dude to get to it. Not a good idea. Murder, care, and social insecurity. We already talked about Medicare and Social Security. Houses, gold, silver, other commodities, stocks, bonds. Big problem. When the price goes up, the supply is increased. What happens when the supply is increased? Right. So what's your option? Right here. Something that you actually control in your own possession and you hold in self-custody, privately and autonomously, with a key in your head that no one knows and that no one could ever get from you, to where if you die and you take that key to your grave, you just made everyone else philanthropically richer who owns that asset. See, you don't have to give away to charities. If you just want to die with your key in your head, with your private keys in your head, guess what? You just made everybody who holds a Bitcoin richer. Now, there's a difference between Bitcoin and crypto. We'll get to that later on. But why should you be proactively concerned about this? Washington Mutual is the largest bank failure in U.S. history. 2008, big deal. 2020, credit cards were shut down for attending Trump rallies. Remember that?
Oh, right.
Remember? That was the creaking of the Titanic. That was the minute. That was it. I said, oh, I see what's coming. 2020, bank lobbies were closed. ATM withdrawal limits were established. I remember that. 2022, crypto exchange. Crypto, not Bitcoin exchange, crypto exchange. FTX, run by Sam Bankman-Fried, or as I like to call him, Scam Bankster Fraud, collapsed in November. First week in November. I will never forget this, because what was happening at the same time? The Hunter Biden laptop story was coming out. And this took over everything that weekend. I was traveling. I remember it like it was yesterday. It is the largest fraud case in U.S. history. This makes Bernie Madoff look like he's on a playground, a little kid. Huge, huge deal, right? And the other thing about this too, don't forget, FTX. So what was happening was Ukraine was partnering with FTX, right? And FTX was taking in all this money. And then for Save Ukraine, Stand with Ukraine Day, or whatever it was. So then Ukraine was putting a bunch of money into Ukraine was sinking a bunch of money into FTX. FTX was turning around, giving it to Democratic parties, election funds in the United States, and then the Democrats are turning around and sending all the money to what country? Ukraine. So it's this massive money laundering thing, breaking wide open with all these people down in the Caribbean, massive mansions, and they're all humping each other, and it's all just coming out in the media right in the midst of the Hunter Biden laptop story in the middle, at the very beginning of November. It's still going on. Go back. It's still going on. But that was $30 billion to zero overnight. 100 million users lost a ton of money right here. But that was 2022. And that started everybody thinking, oh, this Bitcoin thing is, it's so bad. It's so bad. But it wasn't Bitcoin. It was crypto. There was no Bitcoin lost because FTX didn't hold Bitcoin. We'll get to this. 2022, the Canadian trucker convoy occurred in February. Bank accounts, Bitcoin exchange wallets on online exchanges can be frozen. Centralized exchanges can be shut down. Centralized, what do I mean? Centralized means that there is one entity controlling it with an address, a CEO, a team, a website. That's centralized. Decentralized means there's no such thing. There's no address, there's no CEO, there's no website, there's nobody in charge of it. So, crypto is centralized. Bitcoin is decentralized. There is no one in charge of Bitcoin. There is no president, there is no CEO, there is no advertising firm, there's no marketing team. There's no program behind it. Nobody knows. Nobody's into it. Nobody owns it, is what I'm saying. Continue. PayPal threatened $2,500 fines would be withdrawn from accounts for posting against the official narrative. 2 days later, I completely canceled my PayPal account. We no longer use it as a payment method here. And we never will. You do that, you say that once, and I'm out. And now, just as of Friday, Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. This was the second biggest bank failure, and it's just getting started. And it's already the second biggest bank failure. This was all the woke tards in California, Silicon Valley out west, that put more emphasis on their LGBTQIA training than how to avoid and avert financial risk. That's this bank. All the tech people had their money in this bank, apparently. World Economic Forum openly says you will own nothing and be happy, to which I have to ask, well, then who's going to own everything, right? And then the government central bank digital currencies that we'll talk about are going to be linked to your identity. Those are coming. 20 states are currently lined up for that. 20 states. It's unbelievable. Yep, and we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. Here's something else you need to know. Why should you be proactively concerned about this? 40%, go back please, 40% of all dollars in circulation today were printed since 2020. So they just print. Bitcoin people have this ethos, they have this an ethical understanding of what's happening in money and why. And they have many sayings. I'll share a few of them with you later on. But one is, money printer go burr. That right there is money printer go burr. That's what that means. 40% of all the dollars in circulation today, printed since 2020. What did they do since then? They rolled out the stimulus, the stimmy checks, and they gave businesses all kinds of money. Where did it come from? Money printer go burr. Money printer go burr. Next. Repeat, say money printer go burr on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Money printer go burr.
That's funny. In 2020 alone, the Federal Reserve, which isn't federal and has no reserves, printed $3 trillion out of thin air. $3 trillion, right? That's just 2020. Why should you be concerned? Because without the privacy of your financial transactions, you can be rewarded or punished for your life choices, your personal interests, your spending habits, who you voted for, all kinds of stuff. So if you cannot participate in an economy, you are financially powerless. Protecting yourself from surveillance can mean life or death in the coming tsunami of what's happening. Next, 66 countries have a collapsed currency. Africa's going nuts right now because they're trying to roll out CBDCs to certain countries, and the certain countries are not having it. And then, of course, why should you be proactively concerned about this? Last but certainly not least, the book of Revelation. Next. So here's the question. What are CBDCs? Central bank digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies. You're going to hear more about them. If this is the first time you're hearing about them, you're going to hear more. We know that the New World Order's move towards CBDCs is gaining momentum, driven by who? Are the central banks your friends? Absolutely not. They do not like you. Here are the stats on CBDCs. Most current stats I could find. 114 countries, representing about 95% of world GDP, are exploring a central bank digital currency. In May 2020, 35 countries were considering a CBDC. A new high of 60 are in an advanced phase of exploration. That means they're developing, piloting, or launching their own CBDC. In 2023, here we are now, 20 countries will take significant steps towards piloting CBDCs. Australia, Thailand, Brazil, South Korea, and Russia intend to continue or begin a pilot testing this year. The European Central Bank is also likely to start a pilot next year. The Reserve Bank of India started a 2023 rollout of the digital rupee endorsed by the WEF, the bug eaters. Next. 11 countries have launched a digital currency, and China's, which covers 260 million people, is going to expand to most of the country this year. Jamaica has the Jamdex. 18 of the 20 countries in the G20 are now in the advanced stages of CBDC development. Of those, 7 countries are already in pilot. Nearly every G20 has made significant progress and invested a lot of resources in these projects over the past 6 months. Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, coming up on the good stuff. Hold questions for later. Hold questions for later. Come on up. Yay!
All right, so this family has been a patient. They've all been patients about 3 years. So they brought their son in after spending all weekend with a migraine. He was in tears and couldn't leave the couch. For an active 9-year-old, this was hard to watch. After one adjustment, he said, "It was like my body was turned back on." His sparkle was back, and he was back to playing again.
Chiropractic is not for pain, people. I know you've been told that, but it's not for pain. Next. Bitcoin, audited every 10 minutes by tens of thousands of people all across the world. United States Federal Reserve System has not been audited in over 100 years. 109 years. Where's all the gold in Fort Knox? Good question. Next. Conspiracy theorists, CDC, fact checkers, scholars, Mainstream media and experts. Now that's funny. Why is nobody laughing at this? That's funny. Jonathan, why are you not laughing?
I like it.
I like that too. Yeah, you guys need to laugh. Next. An insurrection doesn't have tour guides. I love that. Yeah, the fake January 6th erection. Why are my tax dollars being sent 5,000 miles away? I don't know. It's nothing new. They've been doing it for a long time. Next. So how do you get out of the whole system? You don't use their Federal Reserve notes. Get out of their system. Inflation calculator. You know, I thought this was fake. I went and I found it and it's real. And I worked it backwards too. I'll tell you in a minute. But somebody types in, if in 1913 I purchased an item for $100, then in 2023, 90 years later, only 90 years later, that same item would cost me $3,000. Cumulative rate of inflation, 3,000%. That's why we're doing this class. Now, take that in the reverse. So I put, if in 2023 I purchased a house for $500,000, then in 1913, that item would cost, anybody care to foist a guess? A $500,000 house. 90 years ago, I went from 2023 to 1913. I put in a $500,000 house. Commonly, I guess, you know, medium, mid-range house. $2,000. What else? Anybody?
Less than a grand.
200? Pretty close. So $16.5 thousand, $16.5K. So it went from 16,000 to 500,000 in 90 years. So that's inflation. Next. I couldn't believe that was even real. So now why Bitcoin? Here's the deal. Bitcoin. Now remember, there's Bitcoin and then there's crypto. Bitcoin was the first. All the other cryptos are just like copy, paste, repeat. Why Bitcoin? It is the only thing, it is the only way out of the system. It's the only thing that they hate. The XRP, XLM, ADA, Polkadot, all of the other cryptocurrencies out there have leaders, have presidents, have CEOs, they have headquarters, they have websites. They have a marketing plan. Bitcoin has none of that and has grown, as you're about to see, over the last 14 years. Think of it this way. Well, let me explain this too, because people need to understand. Bitcoin is not something you hold in your hand. It's programmable money. It's a digital currency. It's a store of value. It's a way of storing energy. You can take energy from the wall, run it into a computer, and it creates this massive amount of energy that you can then encapsulate into code, cryptographic code, spread throughout thousands of millions of computers across the world, and you can prove that you own that Bitcoin or that piece of Bitcoin. So it's something that we've been trying to do for thousands of years that now we have the capability to do only because of computers. Because now you've got all these different computers looking at everything, making sure that that is legitimate. So it's called a trustless thing. It's called trustless. You don't have to trust the other person. I can send money to you. You can send money to me with no third party between us. This is a brilliant creation. It's also called permissionless. You don't have to have the permission from a bank or somebody else. Just like Visa and MasterCard, we're gonna track gun purchases up until recently. You don't have to have permission to spend your money. It's open. There are thousands of people's, hundreds of thousands of people's eyes looking at the code behind it every day. It's decentralized. So there are many things we'll talk about, but why Bitcoin? Why am I talking Bitcoin and why not XRP or why not, FedCoin or why not CBDCs? Because these CBDCs and people who own and run like the central bank digital currencies, they can shut off your money. They can give you an expiration date to spend it by a certain time. You can't save. Bad idea. Bitcoin is a monetary battery that stores energy. It's the apex social energy of humanity. It's something we've been trying to do for a very, very long time, right? It's programmable digital energy. Think of how the printing press changed history. I said this all before. Well, this is the end of the money printer. Money printer go burr, right? This is the end of it. So we are now complete. Interesting, isn't it? How history kind of rhymes. We can now technologically do business with each other with no third party, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, taking 3% every time you spend your dollars. Next. Bitcoin is open, decentralized, trustless. I just define these words. People are looking at the code. Nobody owns it. Nobody runs it. You don't have to trust the thing. I don't have to trust the code. It's all right there. It's computers. Like there's a yes or a no. It's on or off. It's 1 or 0. It's male or female. You know, it's trustless. Permissionless. I don't have to have permission to spend my money. And this is the best part. And this is why governments hate it. And this is why you'll hear nothing but bad news if you watch the Devil Vision in your living room. It's censorship resistant. It cannot be shut off. Notice earlier, though, I said that there were online exchange wallets that were deactivated. Those are online exchanges. But if you self-custody your own stuff and you don't leave your Bitcoin on an exchange, you have control of it. It cannot be copied. It cannot be hacked. It cannot be banned. Why Bitcoin? Let's keep talking. No one here has lived through a new financial asset appearing on the scene. Have you? Nobody. Nobody here. This is revolutionary. This is a brand new financial asset that is viewed by the Securities and Exchange Committee, which I'm not a fan of, but they've even said it's a commodity. It's not a currency, it's a commodity. Because why? Remember what's the definition of a commodity? There is no central issuer, right? Continue. There are digital forms of mail, video, audio, books, but we don't have digital money yet? Think about this. Like you can send your voice digitally or a picture or a JPEG. God knows I can send memes digitally, right? But why can't we do it with money? Well, see, people already have been with Venmo and PayPal. But here's a little thing for you. Diners Club, remember that? 80 years ago, history of money. Look into this one. First credit card back in the 40s. Credit cards were the last major advance in money. Not much has changed since then. How? The only thing that's really been invented since then is these things called automated teller machines. That's really it. In the history of money, it hasn't advanced at all. Isn't that surprising? How's that even possible, right? Bitcoin, not crypto. Fiat money has gone down 99%. You just saw that inflation calculator we just did since its inception and will eventually arrive at 0. It is a guarantee. It is a guarantee. It will eventually go to 0. And you should have a lifeboat, a plan B for Bitcoin, if you will, see what I did there, to transact outside of the current failing fiat system. You should have a way to transmit some form of your monetary energy to someone else just because it's all going to 0. Next. And we can show you how to do this farther down the road. That's not the point of this. You cannot move your house or a ton of gold, like what we talked about earlier. Excuse me. Everything you own can be taken by force, except this. What you have in your head. Everything can be taken but what you have in your head. And with your private keys to your wallet, to your self-custodied Bitcoin wallet that you could have in many different forms, and we can talk about that later on too, nothing. They can't do anything to you. You can even take it to the grave in your head, like I said before. If you don't want to leave it to your heirs, if you don't want your kids to fight over it or whatever, guess what? You just die. You forget the words. You have a bad case of dementia, whatever. You just go Joe Biden for a day, you know? You just don't remember what the words were. It's a phrase. It's a 12 or 24 word phrase. And if you memorize that key in your brain, there is no way, there is no one, and there is no computer in the world that can figure it out. It's right there. It's right in your head. It's beautiful. It's fabulous. It's cryptographic perfection. It's fabulous. And the more you look into it, the more you just go, what took us so long? We'll get there. We'll explain that. Fort Knox has not been audited in 50 years. Our monetary system is completely opaque. Opaque means you can't see through it. Bitcoin, however, is completely transparent. There is no predator-prey dynamic with Bitcoin. And this is why the central bankers hate it. Remember that meme at the very beginning? Sunlight to a vampire, kryptonite to Superman, Bitcoin to bankers. It eliminates your bank. It eliminates your financial advisor. If I'm custodying my own money, guess what? I don't need you, right? Because how do they all make money? Mutual funds, stocks, bonds, annuities, right? Gambling, playing games with money that's just being printed, all of it. Not this. There's no predator-prey dynamic. Bitcoin has been appreciating against the dollar 200% per year for the last decade. So that means as Bitcoin goes up and the dollar goes down for the last decade, that's a better return than anything you're going to see. Don't trust me. Go home, research it. Look into it. $100 million of electricity can be converted into $100 million of Bitcoin and vice versa. You can send it around the world with no loss at the speed of light. You can't do that with electricity. You can't store electricity in a battery for a decade, but you can put 100 Bitcoin, BTC is the abbreviation for it, and it'll still be 100 Bitcoin in 100 years because there will still be computers talking to other computers about where is the Bitcoin. Next. 8 billion people are using toxic currency to store their value. You can easily convert your value to Bitcoin. Why would I do that? I'll show you. Next. Here's another FAQ, or another objection, I should say. But it's not real. I can't touch it. Well, there's a lot of stuff in this world that's not touchable, not tangible. But think of this through. It's more difficult to counterfeit a Bitcoin than it is to counterfeit fiat currency. Why? Because you would have to do what's called a 51% attack on a lot of computers, and you'd have to coordinate it immediately, all at the same time, somehow, so that all of these computers don't detect you. So it would be a lot easier to trick someone into accepting a fake $20 bill than it would be tricking computers into accepting a fake Bitcoin. There is no fake Bitcoin. Go back, Jonathan. Just that first paragraph. This in and of itself makes Bitcoin more valuable than paper money. The only thing which makes paper money valuable is that it has the state, the government, which is a monopoly on violence, backing it. What do I mean by that? Endless wars that never end. Go ahead, next. Currency is to the economy what your blood is to your body. Economic energy, aka money, is to the currency what oxygen is to your blood. So if oxygen is getting sucked out of the room, like with the banking crisis or with inflation going through the roof, if oxygen is getting sucked out of the room, you're either going to suffocate or you're going to freeze to death. Bitcoin is the oxygen mask. That's the MicroStrategy CEO. He's put billions and billions and billions of dollars into Bitcoin because he sees what's happening to the American economy, and he's been doing it for years. He owns hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. And remember, there's only 21 million. What about gold and silver? I'm a silver guy. I'm not into gold. I'm a silver guy. I like the small denominations of it. I like the junk silver. I like coins. I like bars. I like, rounds. But Bitcoin has a fixed supply. While the gold supply goes up 1 or 2% per year, and it could increase a lot more if they find a vein in an ocean or if they find a vein in the middle of a desert somewhere, guess what, right? Compared to precious metals, Bitcoin is. Here's all you need to know. When people ask you this question, what about gold and silver? Compared to precious metals, Bitcoin is more scarce. There's a set supply that can never be changed. Gold and silver can go up in supply. That supply goes up, the price goes down, right? We've got a banking collapse, right? All weekend long, my phone's going off. I'm getting notifications, I'm getting emails. All the silver exchanges, all the gold exchanges are going, buy now, buy now, buy now. You know how much the price of silver and gold changed from Friday when Silicon Valley Bank took a crap to Monday? Silver went up 80 cents, gold went up 15 bucks. It's 25 bucks. Is that market manipulated? Yes. So it's more portable. Like I said, armored cars, planes, and boats are the only way you're hauling your house worth of silver or gold anywhere, right? It's the only way. It's more easily divisible. A Bitcoin can be divided, each Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million divisions. We'll get to that. It's more easily divisible. How are you going to divide gold and silver? I mean, they've got the little Valcambi bars that you can break off a gram and go, okay, here's $4 or whatever. But that's not everybody has those. You can shave off little shavings of your silver bullets and stuff like that. Gold and silver, it's going to be very difficult to make them divisible. Easier to store. You can store billions and billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin right here. And nobody knows you have it. You can go through airports. You can go over borders. Kind of brilliant, isn't it? But gold and silver, try getting that onto an airplane. It's easier to hide, same deal. Easier to secure, same deal. If they don't have your keys, they're not getting it. And then easier to assay or verify. Is this real gold? I don't know, you tell me. Next. Easier to move across borders. We talked about that. Cool? So if the founding fathers were alive today, I could guarantee you this. They would be considering writing Bitcoin into the Constitution rather than gold and silver. Many right now are pretending that we're somehow returning to gold. The gold standard failed once already and led directly to the current fiat mess. It will never again be used worldwide for currency. Will it be used for electronics? Yes. Will it be used for currency? There's no way. It already failed. It already screwed up. There's no going back. There's no going back. We need to embrace the digital future of money. This is where it's going. We have digital emails, right? We have digital songs. We have digital video. We have digital pictures. We have digital everything. Why do we not have digital money? We do. It's been around 14 years. It was here before your Venmo and your PayPal accounts. It's been here for 14 years. Next. What about all those other coins? I said this before. All other coins are just copy, paste, repeat with specialization in certain questionable niches like AI or like global banking or whatever XRP stuff is. Bitcoin's 14-year-old digital disruptor to the 5,000 or 6,000-year-old asset of gold. It's weightless gold is what it is. Next. Bitcoin has only to continue doing what it's done perfectly for 14 years. January, the beginning of January, it was the 14-year Bitcoin anniversary when it was first released. Once you understand why gold became money, Robert Breedlove said this, you will sell your gold to buy Bitcoin. If you don't know who he is, check into him. Next. Who created it? Good question. Nobody knows. He went by a pseudonym. He was a cryptographic computer programming guy who published all this stuff on these cryptographic computer chat room boards. And just one day, he released this stuff, worked with a few guys on it for a little while, went by the name Satoshi Nakamoto. So the smallest 100 million divisions of Bitcoin are called Satoshis, or sats for short, in honor of him. But just like you would think, somebody who creates something that eliminates financial advisors, bankers, checking accounts, credit cards, and everything else, do you think why do you think he remained anonymous?
To save his life.
Perhaps to go unnoticed by a system that surely would have destroyed him, right? So I first found out the guy, we don't even know if this is a guy, a girl, a team of people, we don't know. This is very suspicious. But then you start realizing, wait a minute, this is remember the Gutenberg printing press? He put his last name on it, right? So when the Catholic Church was coming against, this whole thing, he didn't put his last name on it. We did, right? But there's a reason why the dude didn't name it after himself. I wouldn't either. After we discussed what we talked about, with Jesus and the crosses and the crucifixes and this and that. So he disappeared. He went radio silent. Go ahead, Jonathan. All altcoins, alternative coins, or alternate coins is what they're called. Some people call them other names. They're unregistered securities with teams and headquarters and CEOs and marketing campaigns shilled often, usually, by social media influencers on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and stuff like that. Hey, buy my coin, buy my coin. Bitcoin has no company, no address, no CEO that cannot be kidnapped or pressured or killed, and there's no marketing team. So who created it? Everybody. Everybody did. So who owns all the computers that it's all on? Well, everyone. Tens of thousands of people have computers co-located in homes and businesses all across the world. Highly, highly centralized, or not centralized, but located, I should say. Remember, Bitcoin's not centralized. There's nobody in control of it, but it's highly, highly propagated in the United States and Europe and China, for the most part. Hundreds of thousands of computers all over the world. It's a massive organism, and everyone benefits from the truth of mathematics and electricity. Next, let's blow through these. We're almost done. Wow, it's almost 7:30. We're doing really well. So you hear this a lot. Just go back to the first one, please. Isn't Bitcoin too volatile? Fluctuations from, right now it's at 25K or whatever. It shot up, while gold went up $25 over the weekend with a big giant banking collapse. Gold went up $25, silver went up 80 cents or something like that. Bitcoin went up $5,000. Right? Fluctuations from, now remember though, that's denominated. Get your mind out of the whole dollar idea, right? Because we're not trying to denominate things in US dollars anymore. You're trying to think of it in the terms of sats or satoshis. You're trying to think of it right now, 500 satoshis would be about, 15 cents. Now, it takes a while to figure this out. It takes a while to work it in your mind, like thinking of dollars, but not dollars. Think of it. Like, how long did it take you as a kid to learn and grow up and go, okay, pennies and nickels and dimes and quarters and half dollars and dollars and $2 and 5, 10, 20, 50, 100. Like, how did you work that out in your mind? It took a while. Same thing with Satoshis. Same thing with Bitcoin, fractions of a Bitcoin. It takes you a while to figure out how does that translate. And then everything changes when the value goes from 20,000 to back in November of 2021 was when it was pushing 70,000, right? It takes you a little while to like figure it all out. But the big point, what I'm trying to say is don't get it denominated in your head like, where's the dollar now as opposed to where it was 5 years ago? That number of US dollars is arbitrary. It means nothing, right? You just have to have a way to crystallize and encapsulate your energy into a storage, a store of value and a means of exchange with other humans and other businesses. So really, the US dollar amount is just arbitrary, and we have it in our heads, and it's hard to break away from. But fluctuations from 20 to 60 and back, because now it went up to $70,000, almost $70,000 in November 2021. Now it's at about 25. But it's back to, it's denominated in US dollars. You don't lose money. Here's the thing. People say, oh, I had it was $40,000, and then it went down to 25. I lost a bunch of money. No, you didn't. You still have that amount of Bitcoin that you bought here. It's just that the US dollar denomination of it changed. You still have the same amount of Bitcoin with the same amount of purchasing power. Just hold on, right? Hold on for dear life. HODL, that's another little Bitcoin thing. But you don't lose money if you don't sell it, right? You don't lose money if you don't sell it. Short-term volatility also ignores that the value is only going in one direction, up and to the right across time. So if you have the value over here, graphed across time here, it's going up and to the right. I'll show you what I mean. I will make this crystal clear to you, and you'll go, that makes sense. Here in about 5 minutes. Next. Consider hedging your value somehow against inflation over multiple years. Whether you buy bullets or food, or whether you buy land, whether you buy silver and gold, do something to get your money hedging for you against all of this nonsense that's going on in the financial world. Next. Accumulate long-term generational wealth and self-custody your own means of exchange. That's what we're saying. I don't care if you buy Bitcoin or not. I'm just explaining it to you simply because we get a lot of questions about this. We've talked about it previously in a few other classes. We've told people to get your money out of the banks for four or 5 years, now, I would say. So people come in and ask us a lot of questions. I don't know, if I guess they just trust us. They trust us with their lives. Why would they not trust us with telling them a little bit of financial stuff, right? So 1 Bitcoin is always 1 Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. Next. What about the people who bought at 69,000? I would ask you, what about the people who bought at $1? Right? I heard somebody say this one time. You will get Bitcoin at the price at which you deserve it. Meaning, you'll get into it eventually. But you'll get it at the price that you deserve, right? Next. A lot of people say, I can't afford $25,000 for a Bitcoin. I don't blame you. Not a lot of people can. But here's what you do need to understand. Like I said, Bitcoin is divided into 21 million Satoshis. This should read, 1 Bitcoin is divided into 100 million Satoshis. That's a misprint right there. So there's 21 million Bitcoin. And each Bitcoin is divided into 100 million Satoshis. That's a misprint. That is 2.1 quadrillion total Satoshis. So 21 million, there's 21 million Bitcoin, and they can be divided into 100 millionths. Each Bitcoin can be divided into 100 millionths. So I'll show you the decimal points here in a minute. If you assume a world population of 10 billion in a few years, but don't assume that because they've got the nanoparticle bioweapon lethal injection going, which is decreasing the population. And if you want to know about the eugenics agendas dealing with the injection, the lethal injection, that will be a lesser number. But let's just do the math to make it easy. 210 Satoshis per person, 210,000, okay? So point of the matter is you don't have to pay $25,000 for a Bitcoin. You can divide it. You can just buy $5. You can buy $10. There's an easy way to do it, and there's a very difficult way to do it. And I can show you the easy way to do it farther down the road. What if they shut down the internet? You hear that a lot. EMPs, stuff like that. Well, if they shut down the internet, your credit cards, your banks, your 401ks, your IRAs, they're all gone. And you will have other problems. And keep in mind, too, go back to that last one, Jonathan. I forgot to mention. Bitcoin, there are 21 million Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. There are 21 million Bitcoin. And each Bitcoin is divided into 100 million Satoshis. Keep in mind that that 21 million Bitcoin that's out there, or that will be out there, they're not all mined yet. We're already missing 3 or 4 million of them. Never to be found again because people had them on a hard drive. They threw the hard drive in a landfill. A lot of stuff. Maybe somebody died. Maybe they didn't tell somebody their private keys to be able to access their Bitcoin. So a lot of those 3 to 4 million, we do know that 3 to 4 million of them are probably not ever going to move because the owner is dead or the computer or whatever the keys were stored on is gone. So that takes your 21 million Bitcoin down to about 17. Keep that in mind. That'll be important here in a minute. And so next. Go back. Yeah. So if your credit cards and banks are all gone, you're screwed anyway. Then you have no other option besides paper cash, metals, and barter. You have no plan B. You have no way of ordering anything online that's going to require you to have a digital form of payment. A lot of websites accept Bitcoin. A lot of them accept a lot of other cryptocurrencies too. But all of the silver exchanges, all of the gold exchanges, a lot of the gun places, you can do Bitcoin or crypto. So you have no plan B, right? If you don't investigate this and figure this out, you're dead in the water. You've got this. Somebody finds out you got this, you're going to have somebody at your door. Same people don't garden because people will steal their food in a zombie apocalypse, right? They're always going to make an excuse. Somebody is always going to make an excuse. They're not interested in the thing. They'll just make excuses to not learn the thing, right? Say, oh, I'm not going to have a garden. The deer will just eat it. So I'm just going to live off Walmart food, Then there's surveillance cameras, and by there, I mean they, them, right? If we can say that. Then there's all the surveillance cameras, the 5G, the CBDCs won't work. They can't shut it all off for long term. Not if they're going to run 15-minute cities and facial recognition and 5G networks, right? Think about it. And then people always ask, what about quantum computing? If it did succeed to break Bitcoin, which it can't, then all internet cryptography, including your banking, would all be gone. Same thing with EMPs. Your last worry is going to be your money, if EMPs are even a real thing, like what we've been told with nuclear stuff. I won't get into that right now, but what if they ban it? Here's the other thing people always say. Who's they? The people who hate it? They can't ban it. That's why they hate it, right? So remember when they banned drugs and everyone stopped doing drugs? Remember that when that happened? The fact that they would try to ban it is the reason that you should get some, right? The minute that they told nurse practitioners and doctors that they couldn't write a prescription for ivermectin, what did I do? I'm not a drug guy. I hate drugs. I hate pharmaceutical companies. I hate the whole hydroxychloroquine thing, the ivermectin thing. You had a drug company. You had the whole nation, every pharmacist, every doctor, every medical school saying, there are these 2 drugs you cannot have for the first time ever. My red flags went up. My antenna were like, what's coming in the future if they don't want people to have that now? So what did I do? The very fact that they said you cannot have this told me that there's some reason in the future to have it. Ding, ding, ding. The fact that they would try to ban it. China banned Bitcoin many times already. Guess what happened? Nothing. Somebody put together something that showed the hundreds of times that China has banned Bitcoin. It's in the media. Like every 2 weeks, you'll read a highlighted article in Forbes or like some kind of money magazine or something like that that shows, China has banned Bitcoin hundreds of times. It's still there. They can't ban it. Next. I don't know how it works. I'm not tech savvy. You don't have to be. You don't understand the running water, or the cars, or the electricity, or the airplanes, or the email. Those were all, the internet. That was new technology. Remember 30 years ago when you didn't have an email account? Right? Running water was new to my grandparents. Look what happened in a couple generations, right? My parents grew up without electricity. Cars. Nobody had a car, right? Look how the world's changed. Now their car is driving them instead of them driving the car. It's nuts, right? So Bitcoin just made your money completely obsolete. It's compressed air. It's monetary electricity. It is an encrypted block of sunlight. You don't need to understand it for it to work. You don't understand how your cell phone works. If you wait, you'll never understand it. Next. Credit cards, Venmo accounts, people use those every day. Cash App, all the other ways that people pay us electronically. If you want to understand Bitcoin, you will never buy it. Or if you wait to understand it, you'll never buy it. How long does it have to run until you get it? It's been 14 years. How long did email and the internet come out before you got into it? Right? Next. Oh, yeah. I love this one. You cannot counter a central bank digital currency with silver junk coins from pre-1965. It's not going to happen. You can have programmable money that you control or that they control, but you will eventually have digital currency. Actually, you already do. It's called a bank account. All that changes is the numbers on the screen in your bank account because they don't have your money, right? Well, you hear people say Bitcoin uses too much energy. I love this one. No one has ever complained about dishwashers, washing machines, dryers, airplanes, locomotives. I mean, nobody's ever, until the environmentalists and the climate changers are worried about Bitcoin boiling the oceans. It can't happen. As a matter of fact, what's happening in Bolivia, I think it's Bolivia or Ecuador, what they're doing is they're using the heat from volcanoes to power the chips behind Bitcoin, to mine Bitcoin off of the thermal heat from the volcanoes.
Wow.
You're going to see an entire industry pop up. You're going to have Bitcoin heaters. You're going to have Bitcoin dryers for your clothes. You're going to have appliances in your house if you want them. If you want to just live off the government, the kill switch with where you can't have gas stoves, you can do that. But you're going to have appliances in your house that generate heat that will mine Bitcoin for you. Because electricity generates heat. And so why let that heat just dissipate and go to be wasted? Just like with the volcanoes. What they're doing is they're turning the volcano into a Bitcoin mine. This is fascinating stuff. It's fascinating. El Salvador is almost the country of El Salvador, which in Spanish means the savior. Crazy, right? Is completely a Bitcoin economy now. There's countries adopting this stuff. And here in the United States, you've got people still arguing about what bank to use. It's crazy. Observe where the propaganda. Bitcoin maximalists like myself talk about FUD, and that's short for the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt that they put out in the media to make sure people don't understand this. How many of you know? Between the spy balloons, the Hunter Biden laptop thing, the January 6th thing, all the crap, all the stuff they put out there to keep everybody distracted from what's really going on. It's March. What happens in March every year? What happens in March every year? What big giant sports distraction happens in March for weeks? March Madness. Here it comes. It's on the way. But the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, observe where all of it's coming from. It's coming from the makers and the supporters of other coins, certain governments. Academia is publishing all kinds of stuff talking about how horrible Bitcoin is, right? But all the other cryptos are good. It's crazy. Celebrities, crypto channels on social media, everything. You'll see everybody come out against Bitcoin, except the people who have some morals and ethics about how the money and how the economy should be working, right? So this disrupts, this whole entire thing disrupts an entire a sector of economics that people don't want to see go away. They don't want to see their financial planner go away. They don't want to see their CPA go away. They don't want to see their bankers go away. They don't want to see their mortgages and their loans go away. A lot of people work for mortgage and loan companies, right? So if I'm a financial advisor and I'm selling annuities and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and I see Bitcoin on the horizon, am I going to be happy about Bitcoin? Now you see why so many people hate it? Because you're unnecessary, right? Like we talked about, Bitcoin's up 200% for a decade in comparison to the dollar. Dollar going down, Bitcoin going up 200%. and has right now a $1 trillion market cap. Now gold is up 2% for the entire year, and gold's been around 6,000 years, and it has a $10 trillion market cap. So Bitcoin is 10% of where gold has been, and Bitcoin's only been around 14 years. What does that mean? Bitcoin went from 0 to 1 trillion in 12 years. Google took 22 years, Amazon took 24, Apple took 42, and Microsoft took 44 years to go to a $1 trillion mark, $1 trillion valuation. I'm not comparing Bitcoin to, I'm just giving you, the time frame. I'm not saying that, who cares? Who cares about the $1 trillion mark? Because it's only going to go up and to the right as more people get pushed out of the financial failure that is called banks and annuities and stocks and bonds and money printing, where they can just flood the market and decrease the valuation of your energy, right? This is wonderful. I'm going to lay this out for you. Make sure you take a picture of the next thing here. If $100 trillion of the world economy goes into Bitcoin, now that sounds like a lot of money. $100 trillion of the world economy goes into Bitcoin. But you have to understand, like, everything in the world has a value to it, right? Can you put that on the floor? Everything in the world has a value to it. Every highway, every building, every car, every piece of land, real estate, gold, silver, all the metals, everything has a value. So what would the total value, this is a big thought experiment, what would the total value of all the world's economy be? Let's just take a small number. Let's take 100 trillion. It's a lot of money to me and you, but 100 trillion, drop in the bucket to the value in the world. But if just $100 trillion of the world economy went into Bitcoin, and then you divide that number by 21 million, which is all the Bitcoin that will ever exist, right? That means Bitcoin can feasibly go to $5 million per coin. But remember that coin is divided into 100 million parts. Can be divided into 100 million parts. I wrote this out for you. You're never going to see this anywhere else. Check this out. So remember, 100 trillion goes into Bitcoin. 100 trillion of the world economy goes into Bitcoin. Just a round number of 100 trillion. You got about a $5 million coin. Here's a conservative breakdown of the world's economy. World economy's asset classes that function as a store of value. People store their value in real estate. Worldwide value is about 325 trillion. These numbers are as of probably a few months ago. All the bonds in the world, bond value, 115 trillion. Stock, now this is public, not the private stuff. God knows what the private stuff is, but the public stuff valued at about 100 trillion, right? Worldwide gold, we said the market cap, 10 trillion. Market cap means market capitalization. That means the total amount of gold that we know that is above the ground. What would it be valued at? About 10 trillion. Then you've got a questionable amount here of like cars and art and stamps and baseball cards and like what kind of value is in all the, fine art and the sculpture and all that stuff. Like nobody knows. But if we just take the minimum, these numbers here, if we just take that minimum number and we say, okay, all the value in the world right now, 550 trillion. If we just assume that 25% of your net worth and your net worth and his net worth and everybody's net worth and all the world, if only 25% goes into a store of value, of all this store of value, if we just take 25% of this number, that ends up being about 140 trillion, conservatively. And remember, we're going very, very, very conservatively on all this, and we're using a conservative percentage here. If you take 138 trillion divided by the 21 million Bitcoin that we know that can exist, it would be about that. So we're on track with the 5 million that we just talked about. You see what I did there? If you take the 138 trillion and divide by the 17 million that we suspect 3 or 4 million about Bitcoin are gone, that takes the value up to about 8 million per Bitcoin. So are you still scared to swap your worthless paper, US dollar, fiat, cash trash to Bitcoin at $20,000? It's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer that. But what I'm saying is, would you rather have paper money that's going to zero that could disappear in a flood or the fire, or would you rather have incorruptible sunlight in a digital format that you can hide in your head and give to anyone you want at any point in time with no transaction fees, or would you rather still hang on to your dead cash? There it is. And those are conservative numbers, Now, I'm not trying to sell you. I don't get any money for selling you on Bitcoin or anything like that. I'm just trying to help you understand, like, where should you put your value? What is money? What is inflation? How are they stealing from you? Why are you paying taxes when they can print it? And when they send it to a foreign country where they go, what, Nancy Pelosi was over there a few weeks ago? She couldn't send an email. She couldn't make a phone call. No, the big thing was she couldn't talk about it. She couldn't say anything. They had to have a meeting behind closed doors. You know, you got actors going over there, middle of a raging war, and you've got Sean Penn going over and giving them an Oscar or Golden Globe or whatever. I mean, it's so crooked and it's so corrupt. How do you break out of the system? You exit the system and you don't extort yourself. You don't pay your extortion. That's how you do it. Put some thought into it, think about it, and go, this does kind of make sense now, right? It does kind of make sense. I'm saying have some gold, have some silver, have some lead, have some copper, have some food, have some water, you know, stock up your freezer. Yeah, of course. But when crap hits the fan, you got to have options, right? And the best thing, the best monetary vehicle to store your energy that we have ever seen, a brand new asset class that came on the scene within the last 14 years, the greatest thing to ever exist in the history of the financial markets or human, this is a huge achievement that you have made everyone in the world able to store their wealth. They don't need a bank. All they need is a jump drive or a phone. All they need is a piece of paper to write down their code. They memorize it in their head, and from any computer in the world, they can go and they can, there's my money. There's my value that I stored in an encapsulated block of sunlight, someplace where no one knows it. That's powerful right there. It is a time machine, yes. It's a very cool time machine, and you don't have to gas it up. Okay, Heidi, come on up. Last commercial break, yay!
All right. So this patient's been here about 2.5 years, and she said, I was having a headache all day. Nothing I did was helping, and I didn't know what caused it. At the end of the day, I decided to try and lay on the cervical block that my mom had from when she became a patient at Divine Design.
Oh, yeah.
After just 3 or 4 minutes, the headache was completely gone and did not come back. I never knew the cervical block could help so much.
Oh, the good old cervical block, yes. It adjusts people when I can't. It's fabulous. Last commercial break, let's check this out. They say there's no money for schools, there's no money for hospitals, there's no money for a pay raise. So how is there always money for war? Oh, I don't know, defense contractors and selling bullets and planes and tanks and missiles. Makes a lot of money. If you really want to know a little bit more about that, watch the movie Lord of War. I can't stand Nicolas Cage as an actor. It just bugs me the way he talks. I don't know why. He's an okay actor, and he's the same dude in every movie. But in that movie, I can tolerate him. And in that movie, if you watch nothing more of that movie, watch the first 5 minutes of the credits. As the credits are, it's brilliant. Watch the first 5 minutes of Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, and you'll understand how defense contractors and how war profits the machine. And actually, that movie was about the guy. Wasn't that movie about the dude? Who was the tranny basketball player that they traded for the murderer? You know who I'm talking about? The American woman, man, trans. Brittany who? Brittany Griner. They traded her for this guy. That movie is about that dude.
Wow.
Watch that movie. That'll blow your face off. Literally. Ha! Lord of War. It'll blow your face off. Very interesting movie, and you'll understand, like without even trying to, you'll understand, oh, this is why we always have wars. We always find somebody to fight, right? 4 biggest U.S. banks lose $47 billion in market value. This was just March 9th. Boom. Citigroup. JP Morgan. Look into the history of the Titanic and you'll figure out why JP Morgan is still around. Citigroup, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America all took a dump starting March 9th. The 4 biggest U.S. banks lose $47 billion in market value. That's why for 4 or 5 years I've been telling people, get your money out of the banks. It's coming. It's just a matter of, it's not a when, or it's not an if, it's a when. I'll read this for everybody in the nosebleed section. 2 different buttons. You got to pick one. It's a great meme. I love this. This button says crypto is a scam. Keep money in banks. This button says banks are scams. Keep money in crypto. I would put a third button. Banks are scams. Keep money in Bitcoin. You have to understand there's a difference between crypto and Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin, and then there's everything else. You buy Bitcoin to have more dollars. I buy Bitcoin to have less dollars. We are not the same. What does that mean? Right here, talking about get rich quickers. People who just want to buy Bitcoin and NGU, 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 number go up, number go up, number go up. They're just constantly looking at their phones going, oh, it's got to go up, it's got to go up. No, you buy Bitcoin to have more dollars? No, because remember, what you're looking at on your phone is denominated in a worthless currency called US dollars, which are actually Federal Reserve notes that are printed out of thin air. However, I buy Bitcoin to get rid of that crap. I get rid of it. The minute somebody tries to pay me in cash, what do? I turn it into Bitcoin. I get rid of it as soon as I can. Get rid of it. It's trash. It's trash. However, there are people out there that say cash is king. Why would cash be king? How could cash be king?
Anonymous.
Huh? Cash is king only because of the anonymity. Cash is king only because it's not trackable. But is cash king as far as value goes? Not at all. No. Okay. And here you will find all the money the banks actually have. Okay? I'll stop being a conspiracy theorist when the rich and powerful stop conspiring. Great. So, I know the question that's burning in the back of all of your minds right now is, how do you accept payments at Divine Design Natural Health? Many ways. I think we have 14, 15 different ways. Here we go. Ready? Bitcoin, Monero, that's another cryptocurrency. It's a privacy cryptocurrency. We'll not even talk about that. Nobody even knows what that is. I'll talk about it later on, farther down the road. Maybe when we do part 2. Monero is the only thing about Bitcoin. The greatest thing about Bitcoin is it's an open ledger. The worst thing about Bitcoin is it's an open ledger. So what I mean by that is, imagine if you, on an open ledger, had the ability to see what your government is spending your money on. Right? An open ledger, meaning the entire world can see where this Bitcoin went, what address it went to, yada, 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 right? So that's that's wonderful. It's an open ledger. That's why we said Bitcoin is open, it's decentralized, it's trustless. Anybody can audit it. The only bad side is that anybody can audit it. So if you're paying for something that you don't want anybody to know that you have, that might be a bad thing. But the good thing is the address of the Bitcoin, the payment address and the recipient address are not tied to your name, at least from person to person. There are chain analytic companies out there that do that for the government and for other places. So there are things called privacy coins that do everything that Bitcoin does, but privately, and it's impossible to track. The dark web used to be Bitcoin. Now it's Monero. Not that I recommend going to the dark web. I don't even personally know how to get on the dark web, but Bitcoin is trackable, traceable. Monero is not. Pirate Chain is not. There are a couple of privacy cryptocurrencies that you might want to look into farther down the road if you're buying things that you might not want people to know that you have. How do we accept payments? Silver and gold. Like I said, bars, coins, and rounds. There's a difference between coins and rounds. Coins are issued by governments. Rounds are generic round things that look like a coin. But coins are what governments issue. Rounds are what sovereign mints issue. Okay, next. Or I should say not sovereign mints, private mints. Sovereign governments issue coins, private mints issue rounds. So they're different. Hardly at all, but different. Like Canadian maple leafs and British Britannias and American silver eagles would be examples of government coins. And they're an ounce in most cases. Rounds would just be 1 ounce buffalo rounds of silver, you know. Venmo and Cash App and Strike. Venmo and Cash App. Remember, we got rid of PayPal. It's just electronic currency. That's just electronic. It's tied to your bank account. Your bank account sends money to somebody. That person receives it like in an email or a text message, and boom, it just goes into their bank account. Like you've been using digital currency for years. You just probably didn't even know it. And then Strike. Strike is a way for you to buy here's what happens. I send Heidi $50. But on her end, Heidi has it set to arrive in her wallet as Bitcoin. That's what Strike does. You don't have to go buy the Bitcoin. You just send it to me and it becomes Bitcoin. Beautiful. Beautiful. Health savings accounts, flexible spending accounts. If you want to spend that here, you can. You just got to handle all the crap and the paperwork and the phone calls with people who are going to say, oh, that's natural health. We might not pay. We might not want to pay for that. But then you go, well, it's my money. I put it in my health savings account or my flexible spending account at my work. And they'll say, well, it is your money, but we get to tell you how to spend it. So you handle the footwork with whoever it may be, and we'll take, we'll handle the products and the services here. But if they're going to argue with you about it, that's your deal, not ours. So that's the only thing about these. Now, most people that we have here, their HSAs and FSAs are very accepting, even with supplements. Strangely, I've never, strangely, I don't think we don't itemize things on your receipts. So when it comes in as Divine Design Natural Health, it just shows up as one thing on your credit card thing, and they can't see what you paid for. We don't share any information from any of you with anybody out there. The only thing that you're going to see on your credit card statement is or on your HSA or FSA statement is a natural health place. Now, it's up to you whether you tell them what you got. That's on you. Care credit, that's a 0% way of financing stuff like plastic surgery, cosmetic dentistry, stuff like this where insurance just doesn't pay, right? So care credit is 0% for 6 months or 12 months or both, one or the other. I'm not sure how it works, but care credit, we use that with a lot of people. A lot of people use that for their dogs and their cats because vets don't accept insurance either, right? So plastic surgery, cosmetic dentistry, veterinarians, and then places like this use care credit. And then, of course, cash, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. But what we're trying to do is get rid of these. We're trying to get rid of that. Because why? Well, I'll tell you. I went to Gatlinburg a little while ago, some family members, my wife, we went to Gatlinburg, and we walked in. There was a cheese place there, and we wanted to get some cheese. Upstairs, there was a restaurant. And there was a stairway that led up, and they had it roped off, and there was a sign, and the sign said, if you want to go upstairs, check with the guy behind the counter. So I thought, okay, what is this place? And what kind of restaurant is this? A couple, a guy and a girl walked in and said, and they were standing there to go upstairs, and they asked him, hey, do we need to talk to you to go upstairs? And he said, he said, no, not really. We just put the gate there, the strap there, and the sign so that we can tell you, if you go upstairs, they don't accept credit cards. So if you're going to go upstairs and have dinner or whatever, you just have to pay with cash. And they said, oh, okay. So they left, and I didn't know if they were going to be coming back or not, but I talked to the guy while he was doing our cheese, and I said, do you have a lot of problems with people walking out, like not wanting to go get cash? And he said, well, not really, because this whole block here is owned by this one business. And this one business, up until a couple years ago, only accepted cash. They never had credit cards. And if people needed cash, and I knew because I went there, I'd been there at this place, and it's a very famous place in Gatlinburg. And so you walked in, and you walked past, the very first thing you'd see in the front room was an ATM. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out, like once you go to pay your bill, they only accept cash.
So you have to go to the ATM.
So you'd have to go to the ATM to get the cash, right? So I thought, genius. And I sat there for, I don't know how long. I did the math and I figured out, I know a lot about restaurants. So I sat there and I watched how fast they were turning the tables over, how many seats are in this massive dining room. And I did the math and I thought, this place is saving X amount of dollars on credit card fees every day. Genius. And all they had to do was put an ATM in the middle of their foyer. The company, he said, that owned that whole block was that restaurant. I said, oh, that's so interesting. That is very interesting. I noticed that years ago because they had an ATM. He said, yeah, right in the front lobby. And I said, well, interesting, because what if I told you that there's a way that you can eliminate credit card fees between you and every customer you have, and you never have to send them to an ATM? He just looked at me, had this dumb look on, I don't mean dumb, like the guy wasn't dumb, but he just had this, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, there's a way to eliminate credit card fees. Oh, wait. Yeah, there's a way to eliminate credit card fees. What I'm about to show you here in a minute, there's a way to get rid of them so that you don't have to send them anywhere. You just go pull out your phone, bloop, bloop, and you're done. It's like, I don't know. I said, okay, just figure it out. I'd ask. If you want me to show you, I'd love to, but that's okay. He just didn't want to know anything about it. It sounded weird. Here's why. Between you and Sprouts, if you go to the grocery store, is a payment processor. Visa, MasterCard, last thing, and then we're out of here. There's Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. When you spend at Sprouts, they take 3% from Sprouts. Just like when you spend here, it's already built into what you pay. The credit card fees are built in. We don't like charge you for that. We just build it right into the price because we're not paying it. When you spend at Sprouts, they take 3% from Sprouts. And Sprouts does the same thing. Everybody passes it on to who? The consumer. They're not paying it, right? If you knew what I paid every year in credit card fees, you'd puke. I want to puke. A friend of mine who's had a multi-million-dollar business for 12 years has never accepted credit cards. Everyone who wants to do business with him pays in cash or check. He has never paid a credit card fee in 12 years, and he's doing at least $1 million a year. When they take 3%, what is that in a year's time? 30 grand a year times 12 years. What's that? $400,000. That's a nice commercial building, free, by avoiding this nonsense right here. So if you're a business owner, you better learn Bitcoin real quick. Because when you spend at Sprouts, they take 3% from Sprouts. Sprouts buys from the vendors, and they take another 3%. The vendors buy from the farmer. There's another 3% taken. The farmer buys supplies with another 3% taken. Rinse and repeat that daily for decades. And you have digital enslavement by central bankers. That's what that is. That's the answer. I'll take 2 questions. Man, 8 o'clock. That was good. That was good. We right on the money. I'll take 2 questions. We got the mic. Anybody got any questions? Going once, going twice. Hold on. Go ahead. What do we got? 2 questions. Then we're out.
That's hard.
What about debit cards?
What about them?
Do they charge
Yes.
a fee? They do?
They're a credit card. They're on the Visa or MasterCard or American Express or Discover Network, yes.
I mean, the bank debit card.
Yeah. Yeah, you look on your
They-
bank debit card, and it's going to have a Visa or MasterCard logo on there. So every time you swipe that at a merchant, the merchant's getting 3%. 3 to 3.5, could be 4% fee that they extract from the merchant before they send the merchant the batch, before they settle with the merchant.
And
They extract it out before you ever see it.
how do you physically pay your bills and your utility bills and things without checks and credit cards and stuff?
Well, right now, there are places in the world where you can pay with Bitcoin. But right now, at least in America, right now, the adoption rate, I'd say the last time I checked, less than 2% of the world is currently using any type of cryptocurrency as payment or Bitcoin as payment. So that means out of 8 billion world population, you're looking at, you're looking at a couple, hundreds of thousands of people, a few million people that even know anything about it. So what I'm saying is once adoption gets to a certain rate, like if we take the world population and go from 2% of the population understanding and using it to 20% of the population understanding it and using it, there'd be a switch. So there are ways you can do it. That's for another farther down the road. But what I recommend for right now and what we do here, like just keeping payroll and everything else going, we just have operating expenses in cash in the bank, and that's it.
One other thing.
That's what I recommend. Don't keep more in the bank than you can afford to lose, is what I say.
What if people don't have smartphones or are not wanting to use smartphones? How would you flip out your phone and pay for stuff if you don't have a smartphone?
You can have a dumb phone. You can have a phone that's not as smart as the smartphones. And you can also use anything online. So just have a computer or a laptop or an iPad or something that allows you digital access to something that you want to pay for. Or you can have There are other little devices where you just have your stuff right here. It's not a phone, but there are other ways to do it. Where you can pay,
Very interested in
put
finding
it, put in your private keys. It's not a phone, but you can put in your private keys and send it to whoever. There are other ways to do it.
I need a class on all this.
That's why I wanted to run through this whole thing as quickly as possible and just understand all of, you clear out all the misunderstood words and all the things about inflation and money and what is it. I mean, you could teach a whole class on just the history of money. Like people used, stones and rocks and glass beads and wampum and grass and cigarettes and tobacco for thousands of years. This was just kind of a bird's eye. People need to understand the gravity of this and how simple it can be and the numbers behind it. And when you start looking at the numbers, you just go, this makes all the sense in the world. Why are people not flocking to this to get out of this current system? I have this talk with a lot of people. A lot of people bring me questions. I mention it in classes every once in a while, and people start talking to me about it. We got a lot of people who are into gold, a lot of people who are into silver, a lot of people who see what's going on. So I wanted to clear this up. So questions like what you have right there are good for farther down the road. Yeah. Oh,
Just to
microphone.
emphasize the drop in our value of the money, that the cash that we have. I made a small purchase through eBay, first time in a
Yeah.
long time,
The fees.
and I had a choice of how to pay. First time, I had two choices. One was U.S., the other was something else, and what I paid was considerably higher using my money than what.
Oh, you
So-
pay more to use U.S. dollars.
Yes.
It's switching.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also Russia has switched over to using the gold standard.
Maybe. Sheila, you had a question?
I didn't have a question. I just had
What were you
a
gonna say?
couple of comments. One was when you were talking about the CDBC, there was actually a prototype that was conducted in this country at the beginning of the year. About 8 of the major banks
I
did
forgot.
a 12-week prototype.
Yes.
And then, of course, Biden signed that executive order last year saying
Yes.
that we're going to a CDBC.
Listen to what she's saying. She knows what she's talking about.
So
Say that all again, Sheila. And you don't have. I won't say what you do, but go ahead. Tell everybody what's going on.
So at the beginning of the year, there were about 8 of the largest banks. Some of them were on that list that he had earlier.
So Citibank, J.P. Morgan, Bank
Wells
of America,
Fargo,
Wells Fargo,
Chase, yeah.
Chase.
Those guys, they did a 12-week prototype to roll out CDBC. So a prototype is what you do before you do the real thing, right? You test it out to see how it works. So that's already been done. That was a 12-week study. It's done.
And that started when?
The beginning of the year.
So January. So that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then last year, Biden signed an executive order saying that we will have CDBC in this country by the end of this year.
By the end of this year?
By the end of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that all you're going to say?
Well, I had one other thing I just wanted to say. It was something that came to my mind earlier today. Interesting. I hadn't even thought about what the class was like. Some of you are, like me, old enough to remember when we started putting money into banks, into savings accounts, and we actually got interest on them.
Mm-hmm.
So bait and switch. I'm only since COVID waking up to what's really been going on in this country.
Right.
That was just like a lot of other things are going. That was a training tool. The banks trained us
Yep.
as a country to put our money that we used to keep at home or put into gold or silver or whatever into the bank to make money on it. And then when they had gotten pretty much everybody putting their money in the bank, we stopped making interest on our savings.
Correct.
So it's kind of like what you were saying about if Bitcoin would grow, then it could be more, spread out.
Yeah. If people started paying for things, and if people started doing things and adopting it and pulling their money out of the banks, there would be a sea change. There would be a massive switch. And along the lines of what Sheila was saying, the IRAs, the 401ks, the savings accounts, all of that was Wall Street, products of Wall Street trying to get you in a scarcity mindset. That's exactly what she was saying. because all of those things are Wall Street inventions. Your pensions, your 401ks. Well, the 401ks were to replace the pensions that went away. So all of these things are Wall Street products to get you in a scarcity mindset, because why? Well, you do a Roth IRA and you don't have to pay taxes. It's all thinking like, oh, how can I decrease my tax burden? How can I extort myself less? How can I sign up for less digital slavery and servitude and serfdom? Right? Rather than thinking, how do I get out of the system completely and totally? There are people out there who haven't had bank accounts for 20 years. There are people out there who transact privately and anonymously in a system where they don't even have a name. They do it. Now, if they have to, somebody pays them with a check or something, they would just have to write the check to somebody else, and the person goes and gets a bank account, and person goes, takes it to their bank account, cashes it, and checks it out, and gives it to the guy, and then he crosses it all over to Bitcoin or something else. But people live outside of the system every day. They've been doing it forever. Yeah. What was the other thing you said though too about the savings? Yeah.
They trained us to
Yes.
put our money in the bank, and of course, they were paying us pretty good interest. But now, basically, what they do is they use our money for free.
They use your money. They use our money to finance wars,
Right.
and to elect themselves. Because the Ukraine thing, like the FTX thing that happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, whose parents were friends of all the Democratic and were big teachers at what was the East Coast Ivy League school that they went to, Princeton or Yale or something like that. I can't remember, but they're all like baby eaters. So they would finance Ukraine. They'd run this big thing. Hey, support Ukraine, stand with Ukraine, put the flag on your bio, the whole 9 yards. And people would send money to FTX, and FTX would send money to Ukraine. Ukraine would send all the money back to FTX, and then FTX gives it to Democratic donors who are going for masks, vaccines, lockdowns, trans stuff, homo stuff, this and that. You could just list this liberal agenda of things, all supported by the Democrats, and they were financing all the Democrat elections. But what was that? Where'd all that money come from? It was taken out of your paycheck. That's right. Microphone. Last question or last observation, then we're out of here.
So how do you pull your money out of secure places and escape the taxation in the process?
Depends on where it is. Like in a bank account?
Yeah, well, like an IRA or
well, it depends.
along those lines.
Depends on how much it is. Depends on how much you're going to get taxed. Depends on how much you want to lose.
And then in the process, well, like with the altcoins, there's taxation on that.
They're trying to tax all of it.
So how to escape the taxation in the process of stepping out?
Just well, I don't know. I mean, that's a question. How to escape taxation? I won't answer that on camera. Let's shut the cameras off. Get me arrested. Jonathan, can we kill everything? You guys, we love you. Thank you. We're going to have feds knocking on the door. 87,000 IRS agents come barreling in. We're signing off. Thanks, Jay.